Let's get into our power rankings. The best finals MVPs since 2000. You took it all the way back on me. I was just looking at till 2010, but you insisted it must be the last 20 years. So we're going top 5 here?
So top 5, and I wanted to, because if you just go back the last 10 years, there's like 3 or 4 that really stand out, but then there's that last spot where you're kind of like, I don't know, what I don't know where I'm going to hand it. But if you go all the way back to 2000, it really, really gets dicey about. And what brought this about was, Giannis afterwards talked about, I could have gone to a super team and it would have been easy. And he really even put a little spice on his quote there, saying it'd be easy. I did it the hard way, the right way. And I love that he said that. But the truth is, we all know there are runs that players have to winning a championship that you go, wow, that took everything out of them. And then there's years where you go like, oh, wow, they coasted to that one, played great, but it didn't really have to dig deep into their bag. So that's why I wanted to rank which players do I personally feel like had to dig the deepest to will their team to a championship. And I went back all the way to 2000. So let me give you first of all, by the way, this is like ranking MVPs, where if somebody doesn't make the top 5 cut, you go, what do you think, he's a scrub? No, I'm ranking MVPs. This is finals MVPs. Everybody on the list is good, save for Andre Iguodala, but everybody else is good on this list.
Let's quickly go through and just talk about the players that you're talking about. So this is since 2000. So if you don't remember, Shaq won it 2 times there, 2001, 2002. Actually, all 3 times if you're going all the way back to 2000. So Shaq, we have Tim Duncan a couple times on there. Chauncey Billups won in 04. You have Dwayne Wade for 06. Tony Parker back out there. Paul Pierce for the 08 Celtics won. Kobe twice there when the Lakers won. Dirk Nowitzki in 2011. LeBron a couple times for the Cavs and the Heat. Kawhi Leonard with the Spurs. You have Andre Iguodala with that weird fluky one for the Golden State Warriors. Kevin Durant a couple times for the Warriors. Kawhi again for the Raptors. Then LeBron last year for the Lakers. And Giannis again for this year. So that's the group of players we're ranking these off of.
So my 2 honorable mentions that did not make the cut. Kevin Durant in 2018, who in the finals put up a 52, 49, 93 shooting splits, which is just absolutely absurd.
That's insane.
If you go 50, 50, 90 in the finals, you're pretty darn good. The only reason he didn't make the cut, like the numbers for him, they're absurd. But the only reason is because it was such a butt whooping. And again, it's like Giannis said, Giannis could have done that. It would have been easy. But my number,
he wasn't subtweeting anyone. We want to be clear, right? He wasn't. He was
subtweeting everyone, to be honest with you. And I loved it. I'm so here for it. Number 6, you're gonna think this one is crazy that it did not make the top 5. Dwayne Wade's 2006.
I'm okay with it. It's tainted.
It's tainted. Well, it kind of is. Like, he shot 46 free throws over the final 2 games. It's a little, like, I guess, impressive if you really liked those free throws. But he had 35 average 35 and 8 for the play as a third-year player. 35 and 8, and he had 2 40-point games in the finals. And the closeout games were just an incredible performance. Did live at the line a little bit, but it was an impressive finals.
I guess he was pretty good.
He's not in the top 5 though. Are you ready for the list?
Oh, I'm ready.
My number 5, I've got Tim Duncan in 2003. This is now people remember the finals because they played the Nets, so some people might roll their eyes. It was a 6-game series or whatever, but that entire run, first of all, they go through the Suns, the Lakers, the Mavs, and the Nets. That's the great teams of the 2000s. You go through every single one of them en route, Suns, Lakers, Mavs. Tim Duncan averaged 24 points and 17 rebounds and 5 blocks per game, over 5 blocks per game in the finals. That's an absurd line. And then he had a near quadruple double, 10 boards, 10 assists, 8 blocks in the closeout game. That's one of the all-time great closeout performances. So he got number 5 for me.
Tim Duncan, definitely deserving, insane. Maybe the finals wasn't as great as we wanted it, but yeah.
It was pretty good, though. I mean, that one, the Nets weren't a complete and total pushover. I mean, it would have been a shock if the Spurs lost, but they were at least a competent, good team, and he just dominated.
Yeah. Well, they're also coming off that. I think that they were weren't they in the finals in 2002, like the year before, and they got swept, and it was kind of a weird situation for the Nets.
Number 4. This one, I think, is going to be controversial. People are the reason I picked this one. Shaquille O'Neal, 2000, not 2001. 2000, the first one. And part of this was just because of the numbers. Well, actually, a large part of this was because the competition was just stiffer in 2000. He had Sacramento, that great series, Phoenix, Portland, and then Philadelphia. There's a different Phoenix team. What's interesting about these teams is Sacramento, Phoenix, and Portland were all like balanced teams. They didn't have the one guy on any of those teams, but they are all like really well balanced. But he just demolished them. 38 points, 17 rebounds in the finals on 61% shooting. Think about that. 38 and 17, and then you make it 61%. He was so dominant, they changed the rules. They had to change the rules of basketball because of how dominant Shaq was. 2001, he was equally as dominant, but the numbers aren't as impressive, in large part because he didn't have to play as many minutes. They were murdering everybody.
38.7% at the line, too.
Oh, wow. That's rough. That's rough
one for Shaq. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like I don't know if you're going to put another Shaq season on here, probably not, but you're just lumping like all three of those together. Like it just seems like those 3 years kind of all blend together now, and you get you get one mention for all of them.
He had to dig deep in that one though. Even so, that to me, that's just why I put that one on there. He had to work a little bit harder. You get credit for that. Speaking of working harder, number 3 on the list. I wish this one was number 1, but I couldn't make it number 1. 2011 Dirk.
Wow. There's 2 that are better than Dirk? Man.
There's 2. Well, here's the thing. Dirk was fantastic in that entire playoffs, and especially in the finals, the way he just dragged them back to it. Besting LeBron and Dwayne Wade, really in the height of their powers, is that's really impressive. You could make the argument that this was the most impressive or close in terms of just overcoming the odds. But the 2 guys ahead of him just put up numbers that are so absurd and such video game numbers. Where Dirk's numbers were great, but the numbers on these other 2 guys were just so crazy. But Dirk's easily, if you made the argument for number 1, I wouldn't argue too hard against it.
Yeah, the numbers don't stand out, right? 26 points a game, just 42% from the floor. It's not like, he put up gaudy numbers like that. Just
but we
got
all
it done,
watched
though.
The series.
Got it done.
We all watched the series, and like he shot 100% on shots that he needed to make to win the series.
Right.
So
right.
Number 2, we just watched it. Giannis's 2021 run. I mean, the numbers are Wilt Chamberlain-esque. The closeout game, to me, the closeout performance of him and Tim Duncan's closeout, those are maybe the 2 best closeout games of this entire list, and that matters. But Giannis, what he did in this entire series, both ends of the court, just as dominant. I asked Matt Moore on Locked On Nuggets yesterday if LeBron, in 2012, his first champion. Actually, if you go LeBron at age 26, could he have done what Giannis did in this one? And I think the answer is yes. Like, I think the answer is yes, but you at least have to think about it. What Giannis just did, 50 points in a closeout game, that's not like, we can't just assume every great player would have done the same thing. He stepped up and played maybe above himself to get that team to the victory.
Yeah, not every player can score that against Jay Crowder and fouled out DeAndre Ayton and Frank.
Man, that was a good defensive team, that Phoenix. That was a good team Phoenix was. There's a reason that the Milwaukee Bucks were underdogs in the series, and it's because it was going to take 17 of 19 from the free throw line from Giannis to win it. And guess what? He did it.
Plus everything he did on the defensive end, too. I mean, he was all over the place, swatting
the shots. Block, the dunk,
yep,
the 50-piece. Back-to-back-to-back games. That's a hell of a closeout.
That's a lot. Yeah. I'm with you.
Can you guess who number 1 is?
Andre Iguodala, the Golden State Warriors.
Not Andre Iguodala. I'm curious to see if you could guess it or if you think I'm way off here.
Man, number 1. Okay, so we haven't done the LeBron one yet, but it does. LeBron with the Cavs?
To me, it's got to be. That was as heavy of an underdog season. 2016, you're talking about a 73-win Warriors team. And the way LeBron and Kyrie, he deserves a lot of credit for this, but the way LeBron closed out that series and down 3-1 to come back. 3 of LeBron's all-time best performances came in games 5, 6, and 7. And to be able to do that the way that he did, to me, it's number 1.
Especially against the team, too, right? Like, you cannot compare that Warriors team to the Suns team that Giannis just played, right? Like, it's just such a different thing. So, yeah, absolutely deserving to be number 1.
But here's the thing, though. This is why I bring it up. LeBron 2016 with the Cavs, that was a super team, but they were still underdogs. And we all know that, like, hey, man, giving your best and having to, like, just the razor-thin margin when your best is just barely good enough, that means something. LeBron last year, To me, that would rank very low on the list. Even LeBron in Miami, which he was no bum, especially in 2013. Like, it took a lot out of him. That I think he grew as a player in that series as well. But to me, even those ones rank just a little bit lower than all these guys we're talking about who were true underdogs and whose best games came in those finals. And LeBron in 2016, I certainly think that's true. Some of the other years, not so sure, not so certain.
Couple of them that you didn't mention. No mention for Kobe. He won twice. LeBron with Miami a couple times. You didn't mention. Neither of Kawhi's were mentioned. You have another Kevin Durant one there. The Tony Parker, the Paul Pierce, the one-offs, the Chauncey Billups.
Right.
None of those making an honorable mention at all.
So they didn't get the honorable mention. I think they were clearly, for me at least, behind, especially when you kind of look at some of the numbers. And I've watched all of these series. The one thing I'll say, though, Kobe in 2010 was asked in the postgame what was his favorite championship. And without hesitation, he said this one, meaning the 2010 one, 7-game series against the Celtics. And he was asked why. And he said because it was the hardest one to get. Kobe knew exactly what we're saying. This list is largely a ranking of what was the hardest championship to win. And you could easily say it was LeBron 2016, Giannis this year, Dirk in 2011. Like, those all took the biggest performances from their guys. Kobe knew it. I think everybody knows it deep in their hearts.
So you're saying the bubble wasn't the hardest championship? Is that what you're saying?
It was hard in a different way. Look, I don't take anything away from a team that wins a championship. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying we sometimes know when it takes your best effort to win a championship. And, you know, not everybody, as impressive as they've been, not everybody's had to dig all the way deep into their bag to get it done.
Completely. There you go. That's our power rankings. That's Locked On NBA. Go listen to Locked On Mavs, Locked On Nuggets, and also the ultimate mock draft, the final episode, if I can get it edited and out on time, drops today on Friday. It's all of our picks that we made for our teams. Chad Ford is on there. Brian Scalabrine is on there. Ryan McDonough, hosted by David Locke and some of our great Locked On NBA draft experts that make the analysis for it. Go check it out anywhere you get podcasts. The ultimate mock draft 2021. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA. Boom.